So, this week we are going to be talking about character again. Unlike character arc, what I'm going to try to focus on this time is actually how to build conflict when we are working with a character thread in a story. So, a character story begins when the character is unhappy, and they end when they are happy. What essentially happens at the beginning of a character story, and this is like really very key to know. I talk about how a character story is about internal conflict. But the thing to understand about that is that it specifically means that your character is in conflict with themselves. There's a lot of different ways that beginning state can occur, but what you're looking for is something where the character is in conflict with themselves. So when we say that, like how do we set that up? So we define ourselves around a couple of different axes. Our ability, role, relationship, and status. These are kind of the four building blocks of self-identity. So your ability is defined by what you can do. The moment when the smartest person in the room isn't anymore, if someone calls you stupid, if you think you aren't smart enough, if you think you're too smart, if you can play violin, if you're a writer, if you're a puppeteer, if you are not a puppeteer, but whatever it is, ability is all about the things you can do. A role is designed by tasks, and tasks are separate from things you can do. There's some overlap, but a task is basically things that you're responsible for. So your role is about responsibility. Relationship is defined by loyalty. So a wife, a daughter, a sister, mentor. And I want to just kind of flag that the mentor also gives me an opportunity to talk about the difference between role and relationship. So as a teacher, that's like I have a responsibility to the students in my class to make sure that they learn what they learn well. As a mentor, I have a loyalty to students that is different and not necessarily fully connected to my actual teaching. Does that make sense? So one is loyalty, the other is responsibility or task-based. Status is defined by hierarchy or power. Basically, status is defined by power. So a lot of these things also do fluctuate, but status is the one that is most affected by context, by where you are. When I go to the Nebula Conference, because I'm the president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, I'm very high power in that situation. But when I am on an airplane, back in the before times when you could do such things, there's no, like, and someone says, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm president of SIFWA. And they're like, is that a disease? Like, very low status, very low status. So when you're looking for that internal conflict, one of the easiest ways you can get it is to place two aspects of a character in conflict with each other. So, for instance, let's say that one of the things that I define myself as is by my ability with puppetry. Then let's say also that I define myself with my loyalty as a wife. So when I get called out of town to go do puppetry work, I have this conflict because on the one hand, it gives me the opportunity to do the thing I'm good at. But on the other hand, it takes me away from the relationship. When you're trying to create that unhappiness, is to make the character either have them have a conflict between two sides or have one aspect of self that is unfulfilled. It is the void that the character is trying to fill. So if they are lonely, they want a relationship. If they are powerless, they want status. If they feel useless, they want tasks. And if they feel like they are worthless, which is slightly different than useless, then they want to know that they're good at something. You're going to start by forcing the character to confront this thing. You're going to need some catalyst moment that causes them to begin to recognize that there is a problem. The progression is denial, resistance, exploration, acceptance, and manifestation. So this is the arc of discovery that your character goes through in the process of reaching for satisfaction. The trick is that every time your character takes an action, that should have consequences. In this case, in a character story, trying to make a change to yourself is the action. Those manifest externally, but it also will have an impact on the character's internal state. Complications are when the self-identity opens up a different set of problems. So, that they have a problem with that their relationships are completely borked, and that any effort to fix their relationships is also going to cause them to have problems because they'll have to give up some of their tasks they're doing. In order for me to go out and go on this date, I have to blow this deadline. So that's the kind of thing where you can put this other aspect of self into jeopardy in the complication realm. A story could also be about a person who feels part of their identity is being threatened, where the goal is to protect it even if it isn't actually being threatened. So you can start where a character is high status, and there is an action that happens externally that is going to cause them to have a status drop, and they feel panicky about that. And so now they have to move into the resistance phase, where now they're in resistance and they're trying to hold on to that in some way or fight their way out of it. You hit a no, and that propels them into the next level. Once you've gotten out of denial and been carried into the resistance phase, your character has begun to recognize that there might be some truth there, but they're still trying to cling to the old self-definition. So it's often more desperate. Often this will lead to overcompensating. There's still a conflict between the dictates of their old self-definition and the new one. So what goes wrong while they're trying to explore it? Something will go wrong in the exploration phase, and whatever it is propels them into acceptance, and they can very clearly see who they are at that point. And then the manifestation is they accept who they are and how do they act upon it. What has changed with their relationship to the world? We see the actions that the character is taking, and they are taking a new type of they're making different choices now. And that's the biggest thing when you're dealing with a character story as you're moving the character through, is that the character fundamentally is a different character at the end if they have actually made a change in themselves. So they are going to make different choices at the end than they are at the beginning. So one of the things that you can do is that can be satisfying for the reader is to present them with a choice that is comparable to a choice they had to make at the beginning, and have them make a different choice that shows that they are comfortable with who they are now. And the Hallmark special music plays in a swelling crescendo behind them, and everyone goes, "Oh, they made their bed. It's so beautiful." As the sunlight and the autumn leaves cascading down, and it's lovely. But that it doesn't have to be a big thing, that choice where they do the thing, but finding some action that they take at the end that expresses that, yes, they make different choices now, can be very, very satisfying to a reader.